Hello, my name is Michael Olpin. I'm a professor at Weber State University, and I'm also contributor to the new book that Sam Bracken and I put together called Unwind. I've been involved with 4 editions of a stress management textbook that's being used around the country and even worldwide right now. As a professor at Weber State University, I'm also involved with a place that we call the Stress Relief Center, where we have 3,000 or 4,000 students and faculty and staff come to our place each year, well, on a daily basis, and they get to play with our toys and tools that help people turn off their stress, feel better, and relax. And I've written a couple other books associated with stress, one on sports performance and another book that I titled The World is Not a Stressful Place. And the essence of what I want to share with you has to do with that idea that the world is not a stressful place, and that you can live a life that is stress-free. Having worked with people and taught stress management for over 20 years and having studied it for over 30 years, I have learned that stress as a response in the body to today's demands is an incredibly useless and inappropriate way of approaching those demands that we have. The problem that we have is nobody knows how to deal with those stresses. They haven't figured that out, and they just think stress happens to them. And what I'd like to share with you is how you can take some control over that. First of all, we'll play with why stress happens in the first place, and then look at how you can prevent your own stress from happening, and if you do get stressed, how you can turn it off. And then later on, we'll spend some time talking about how to stay in a stress-free and mental, emotional environment, an internal environment all the time. So if we look at why stress happens, and I think if we look at really our own experience, if you think about things like headaches and muscle pain, and if it takes longer than 3 or 4 minutes to fall asleep, or if you're just irritable or fatigued in the day, for no real reason, we have to ask ourselves, why would these things happen to us when there's no real good reason for us to have a headache? It doesn't make sense that that's something that we experience over and over again. And in order to understand why we have these symptoms of stress, and we can almost look at just about every health concern, health condition that we struggle with in our culture, there is a stress component to every one of those. And to answer the question, why would that be, we have to take ourselves back in history. We have to take ourselves back to our ancestors and look at what was going on for them. And so let's do this. Let's go through a little bit of a scenario where you and I take ourselves back to 10,000 BC. You and I are living in a neighborhood where we're friends and we're having a good time together, and we're just enjoying ourselves together. I live near a forest, and out of this forest, let's pretend, emerges this enormous bear. And let's say that we're cooking something on the fire and we're just hanging out. And this bear has smelled our food and he wants some, and so he's running full blast at us. Can you picture that? I can picture that. And if I see this bear coming at me, we have to ask ourselves, what's going to be the first thought that will happen in our mind? And you would think that the first thought would be to run, right? You think, here's a bear, I gotta run. Well, the truth of it is, the first thought that you will have when you see the presence of this bear is something like, uh-oh, oh my gosh, oh geez, something. And the reason we have that thought is we sense this bear and it says, I'm in danger. That's the first thought. I'm in danger. Something bad is going to happen. That leads to the second thought, that is, run. With the idea, at least for our ancestors, that By running from the danger, they will avoid the potential pain or death that would come from that particular danger, that threat. The other thought that we might have would be fight. Maybe we're not fast, or maybe we're with a family who's not so fast, that can't get away, and we recognize, I've got to kill this threat so that we don't die or have physical pain. And when we have that initial thought of uh-oh that leads to the run or fight thought, it leads to a flood of physiology that's going to make us Superman and Superwomen, super fast, super powerful right now. The instant we have that superpower in us, we're able to get away from the bear safely and no harm. Now, if we bring ourselves fast forward to present day and our culture and our environment and the communities in which we live now, if we accurately assess the situation, there aren't any bears. If we look, I do this interesting thing with my classes. I teach a class on stress management, and one of the things we do is we ask every person in the class, we go through the class and we ask every single person, what % of your last month were you in situations where you really were in danger? The equivalent of a big bear running at you. And even the most seemingly stressful jobs that people have, firemen, policemen, whitewater rafting guys, even their lives, every single time I've asked this in 15 or 16 years of teaching, it's always less than 1% of our day-to-day experience is legitimately stressful. In other words, less than 1% of our experience will the stress response help us through it. Do we need to activate the stress response so that we can get through it? Now the question suddenly arises for us, why would we ever have the stress response on if we're never, ever really in legitimately stressful situations? It's a good question. Why would you ever? Because everyone I know has more stress than they need. Everyone I know, everyone I work with, they have headaches, muscle pain, fatigue, irritability, all of those things. Too many things on their plate, can't handle it, they struggle. But the stress response is still being activated even though they don't need it for the situations that we're in our day-to-day lives. Now we have to go back a little bit and ask, the stress response itself was designed to last only about 30 to 60 seconds. That's about how long it took for our ancestors to recognize the bear, rev up their engines and run, and then get away from the bear. 30 to 60 seconds is all. We know people who are stressed all day long. It's an enormous imbalance in the body, physiologically, psychologically, emotionally. It's an enormous imbalance. And we keep that imbalance going all day long. Now, if we were to look at how the stress response looks, we're kind of going along, and then there's a threat thought, that uh-oh thought. And then the stress response cranks, stress response turns on, and it's supposed to last 30, 60 seconds, and it's supposed to turn off, and then we go back to normal. The difference in our day is we keep saying uh-oh all day long. We have 21st century minds living in 10th century BC bodies. Our bodies, our nervous system, our endocrine system, they don't see what's going on out here. They just are listening to our frontal lobes, our higher order thinking, and every time our higher order thinking says anything that sounds like uh-oh, because we're our 10th century BC bodies, they don't recognize that there's not a difference between a deadline that I've got to meet that I'm late for, and a big bear. They don't recognize that there's a difference. Our internal systems don't recognize a difference between an argument that you're having with your favorite people and a big bear. They don't recognize that there's a difference. All they're doing is listening to the uh-oh thought. And if that ever happens, they know, okay, if that happens, then I better crank because there must be a bear. So if we have that physiology going, and there's an enormous flood of activity that happens every time we have that fight or flight response, increased heart rate, increased breathing rate, increased blood pressure, decreases in a lot of systems like reproductive system, immune system, endocrine system. A lot of systems turn on, other systems turn off, so that we have one, for the purpose of one single design, and that is survival. Physical survival. That is the only reason why we have the stress response as part of us. There's no other reason for stress. Now people will say, well, I need a little stress to get going. I got a game, I've got to be stressed. Got a big interview, I got to be. The truth is, the less stressed you are in real terms, the more well you will do every single time. So, what we want to do is look at what are we doing in our days where we are, and it gets subconscious really a lot of times, our days where we say, uh-oh, I'm in a traffic jam. And then notice we have this stress response. We say, uh-oh, those guys are driving too fast on the freeway. We turn on the stress response. What we have to understand is that thought of uh-oh, every single time, that is the cause of all the stress that we experience. And the reason why I know that, there's one way we can immediately tell why it's not what's going on out there that's causing us to feel stressed. There's a place where you can be 5 feet away from a bear and not have any stress at all. If you go to the zoo, you can be 5 feet away from an enormous bear, enormous gorilla. You can be in amongst all of the most dangerous creatures around. But what you're not doing at any point in that zoo is saying, uh-oh, I'm in danger here. There's no thought of, there's no threat thought. And that is the activator of all of our stress, is the threat thought. And so what we want to understand with this first session is everything that we feel in the way of stress happens because of how we're thinking about what's happening outside of us, not what's happening outside of us. And the more we practice that, the more we, in every situation, we ask ourselves, am I in danger here? Am I really, could I possibly die or have physical pain? And if the answer is no, then your body will hear that, no, I'm not in danger, and no activation of the stress response. So here are 2 essential oils that have been found to be valuable in maintaining homeostasis and preventing the stress from turning on in the first place. And those 2 are wild orange and peppermint. And you can place those in the back of your neck, on the bottoms of your feet. You can inhale them directly and find value in those. So the challenge with this session is to, as you're going through your day, notice how you're feeling physiologically. Notice how your emotions are flowing from one emotion to the next. And ask yourself, as you're going through those different feelings, physical, emotional, see if there is a uh-oh thought, a threat thought that is popping in there from time to time. See if you notice any thought of "I'm in danger here" thought, and then the moment you notice that, just say, "Wait a sec, I'm not in danger," and stop there. And with the next session, we'll talk about what to do after that. But for this challenge, just stop the threat thought.